Debbie Platz is the New South Wales State Emergency Services Deputy Commissioner and joins me now from Wollongong. Welcome to the program. Tell me, what's the latest?
So, as has occurred over the past nearly 2 weeks, this tropical cyclone and next tropical cyclone system continues to be very unpredictable and dynamic. So what we're seeing at the moment is a somewhat easing of the weather in the northeast part of New South Wales. So we will start to look at all the warnings for that particular area and see whether or not any of them can be modified to allow people to return back to their homes. But at the same time, we are now responding to incidences in the mid-north coast area and also considering the risks to the northwest part of the state as the river systems out there start to fill up and overflow. So we do currently have 144 warnings in place, and of those there are 36 evacuation warnings. We're asking people that, as this is very dynamic, to please keep on top of the alerts on either the Hazards Near Me app or our website, because just to give you an example, in the last couple of hours we've had to do 13 new different warnings for either prepare to isolate or prepare to evacuate. So it is changing very rapidly, and it isn't just necessarily whole towns, it might be parts of towns, particularly low-lying areas. So if you download the Hazards Near Me app, you can get the most up-to-date information right at your fingertips for your local area.
And that app particularly gives you really geolocated data, doesn't it? So if I'm sitting here, I can get information for this very patch that I'm sitting on, and that's the case for everyone everywhere.
That's right. You can put whatever areas you would like to have warnings for into the app, and that's the warnings that you'll be sent in very real time. So as I said, it's the best way to keep informed for everybody in our communities, particularly during this weather event, which is very dynamic and changing all the time. And can I also please ask people to still remain indoors? It's a very difficult time for our emergency services workers who are out on the road. So if you don't need to be travelling on the road, and really should only be those that are under evacuation warnings that are out, please don't go onto the roads. We now have had 21 rescues in the last 24 hours, including a family of 8 actually, that we assisted New South Wales Police to walk out of some flooded waters. We had a man that was clinging to the roof of his four-wheel drive after being swept into a swollen river last night. These are terrifying situations, and for our volunteers and emergency services partners, it's an extremely dangerous situation, and although they are extremely well prepared and trained, we don't want to put any lives at risk. So please, everybody stay indoors until you are given the all clear to go back to your communities.
And Deputy Commissioner, these 21 rescues that you mentioned, is this people that have found themselves in the wrong place as the weather circumstances have changed, or are people taking risks that we've been hearing over and over again that no one should be taking?
Of course, there is always a mixture of reasons as to why people become trapped, but predominantly these are people that are on the roads that don't need to be on the roads. And people don't understand when they look at water just how strong the current is flowing and how deep the water is, or what sort of debris is underneath it, or indeed if there is even a road underneath it anymore. The roads can be washed away, leaving great craters that people can fall into. And it only takes 10 centimetres of water, and if it's swift flowing water, that can actually shift a car. So it is very dangerous for people to drive into flooded waters.
And how many calls have you now had into your emergency response teams?
So currently we've had, for this particular event, which of course we started monitoring on Tuesday, we've had nearly 6,200 incidences that we have responded to. We currently have about 1,200 incidences outstanding, so I would ask people to be patient as you wait for people to come and help you in your homes, because we have to prioritise the jobs that are there, but we also have to take into account the safety of all our partners and also our volunteers before we allocate tasks to them.
And presumably those matters get triaged based on the severity of need and a whole lot of factors. Just how do you make those decisions?
Of course, so anything that's life endangering obviously comes first, and we will always respond to those matters. Most of the calls that we're getting in now are people needing assistance to prepare their homes. So for example, with sandbagging, people who are returning to their homes and are seeing the damage that's been done. So fixing roofs, removing trees that have fallen onto roofs, tarping roofs, and also removing trees from roads that are closed due to those fallen trees.
And Deputy Commissioner, the last update that we had, there'd been something like 900 calls for help in the past 24 hours. Has that changed at all?
So we've had around about that in incidences that we've responded to, but we've had about 1,300 calls into the SES Operations Centre here in the last 24 hours.
And what sort of team do you have mobilised now of either staff and as well as volunteers?
So we have an incredible amount of people, particularly in the northeast and the mid-north coast area of New South Wales. So there's around 3,200 mixture of both emergency service partners, SES staff, and also the wonderful dedicated volunteers that we have, not just from the SES, but also the VRA, Marine Rescue, and also Rural Fire Service. So everybody is working hand in glove during this event. The one luxury we have had from this particular event is that we had a lot of notice from the Bureau of Meteorology that the potential cyclone and eventual cyclone was coming. So we've been able to really carefully plan this event. We've been able to pre-position our people and our assets, and that has made things much easier for us to be able to help keep our community safe. And the other thing I would say too is that we are so grateful to the community for their support and for them actually heeding to the warnings that we're given. We're seeing that most people are actually paying attention, staying connected and doing what we're asking them to do, which is absolutely so beneficial as we try to keep all the people in New South Wales safe.
Just finally, Deputy Commissioner, we've heard from the Bureau of Meteorology this morning that there's particular an eye on the winds around this storm, and that in some areas rains could be between 100 and 200 millimetres, but others 200 and 400 millimetres. Some of this might be outside of your jurisdiction in Queensland, but I wonder what your message is to anyone who is going to be facing more of this bad weather today.
So the unpredictable nature of this system has meant that we can see wind gusts pop up out of virtually nowhere. So 1 minute it can be sunny and no wind, and the next minute you can have very intense rainfall and significant winds. So that's why we're asking people to stay indoors, because it is so unpredictable. Particularly if you're near beaches, then please stay away from those beaches and also the river areas. As I mentioned at the beginning, we are starting now to focus on the potential risks for the northwest of this state, where we're going to see water from Queensland come down into our river systems, plus the intense rainfall that we're going to receive out there most likely is going to mean that those river systems are going to rise rapidly and could create either moderate or minor flooding in those particular areas. So again, the people out in the northwest, you start now to stay connected to the Hazards Near Me app or our SES website to monitor the conditions out there, because we do expect that over the next 24 to 48 hours that things will change in that particular area. And then of course, depending on what this system does, it's possible that it will come down into the greater Sydney area, the Illawarra and the Hunter region. So there is an expectation that potentially between Monday and Wednesday we will see significant rainfall in those areas as well.
Debbie Platz is the New South Wales State Emergency Services Deputy Commissioner. Many thanks for your time and the work of you and your team. We really appreciate it.